Hey everybody, it's Ben in Beta, and today I have another power station review for you. And just to be totally transparent, AllPowers reached out to me a few weeks ago and they asked if I would review some of their products. And I really love power stations and just what they can unlock for you, whether you're traveling or you want to use them every day at home. And so I decided to definitely take them up on that offer, and they sent me a few different products. This is the R1500. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then they also sent me, which you can see behind me here, a couple of solar panels to go along with that to test too. So just a little bit about AllPowers. They make a ton of different variations of power stations and solar panels and all the accessories that go with them. And then generally they're a little bit less expensive than some of the other brands out there like Billet, EcoFlow, Jackery, so on and so forth. So the question I really wanted to answer is, are the AllPowers products a good value and something you should pick up? Let's get into that now. This is the R1500 from AllPowers. They have power stations all the way down to just a couple hundred watts, all the way up to like 4,000 watts. So they run the gamut of anything you could need. From small little power stations you can just kind of take with you pretty easily, to something like this, which is sort of in the mid-range, to something much bigger. And also, bang for the buck, you get a lot of features with the AllPowers systems in comparison to maybe some of the other leading brands that are out there. But you still get some of the great benefits that you get from some of the other players, like lithium iron phosphate batteries that last for 3,500 plus charges. And this also has a 5-year warranty, which is very similar to a lot of those other products. Before we get too far into this, I'm just going to say I would highly recommend the AllPowers products. I was very impressed with the performance overall, and I think it's a great value for the money. And then we're going to go ahead and talk through all the features, and also let you know some of the things that maybe could be improved or could be better, and also what situation I would use this specific battery in. Now, I would also say I'm not replacing my Blue Eddy batteries, and that's mainly because those batteries are very specific for my overlanding setup. They are IP rated for water and dust, and they performed fantastically out in the field. I've had no issues whatsoever with them, so I'm definitely not going to be replacing them with something like this, because this is not IP rated, so I can't use this in the back of my pickup truck. And if you have an enclosed camper, or if you have like a 4Runner or something and you need a battery system for that, I think this is a pretty good battery for that. It's a good house battery for an RV or a small camper because it has a lot of features. It can output a lot of power, and it charges very quickly as well. Let's talk about the features and what make this a pretty good value for the money. I will have links in the description for all of these products, and they are affiliate links, so I do benefit from them if you decide to pick something up. But there's also a coupon code which will save you some money if you purchase from AllPowers. I'll also put the Amazon links in there too if you want to go that route, but you get the discount if you buy directly from AllPowers. All right, feature-wise, first of all, you can see that this has quite a nice screen. It's very similar to the Blue Eddy screen, and it gives you a lot of the information you need. You've got your input, you've got your output, and how long the battery's going to last. I wish it told you how long until you were actually going to be charged. That's one thing I didn't see anywhere, and I didn't see that in the app either, but it's not like a deal breaker as far as information goes. So one of the ways that the R1500 shines is in the amount of outputs that it has to charge devices. So talking DC outputs, you've got USB-C, 200 watt outputs, 2 USB-As, which go up to about 18 watts. You've got your cigarette plug, which goes up to about 120 watts. And then it's got dual wireless charging on top. So you can charge 2 devices at 15 watts at the same time. And I've had this thing fully loaded with all the DC outputs, and it's done a fantastic job, had no issues whatsoever. And that's one of the areas where I think the R1500 really kind of shines. On the AC side, you've got 4 AC outputs, and they can do up to 1,800 watts. This is really the first power station that I've tested that I could really do a pretty significant test in terms of AC. So let's take a look at how the R1500 performed when I used this to boil some water with my fellow Stag electric kettle. I've actually never had anything that can power this fellow Stag electric kettle before. This would be a good example for something like camping if you want to go all electric and you didn't want to deal with propane or whatnot, whether or not this can handle this. So AllPowers should be able to handle up to 1,800 watts continuous. This is a 1,200 watt kettle. And just for fun, we're going to see how long it takes to boil some water for some tea. So I'm going to do a timer here for this, but I'm also going to plug it into the USB-C port and charge my phone at the same time, just to see how that goes. So let's set that up. Currently I have the DC plugs on. We're going to turn on the AC. We'll plug this guy in here. Okay, kennel is on. So I just heard it click on.
We're not pulling any watts at the moment, but we're gonna go ahead and turn this on and set the temperature to 195 degrees, because we're at elevation. If I go higher than that, it'll boil all over the place. So we're pulling that 1200 watts while charging the phone, no problem whatsoever. You can hear the fans kicked on. This is the highest I've ever heard them, but we're easily pulling that 1196 watts. And now we'll just see how long it takes to boil that water. Oops, I guess I already should have started that right away. But we'll see if it can handle boiling water and charging my phone at the same time. And it's still not as loud as actually the EcoFlow that I had before. And we're at 110 degrees right now, 111 degrees, 112. So the R1500 having absolutely no issues whatsoever with getting this water to the temperature I need it to be at. So again, at elevation, I generally set my water temps for tea and coffee, all that kind of stuff, to about 195 to 198 degrees. We're at 133 now. Obviously, we're using quite a bit of the battery. This is an 1152 watt hour battery, but you're only going to be doing this for a couple of minutes. We're currently at 3 minutes for that high output, and it's handling this without a problem at all. And you might think, well, how long is this going to actually last? And it's telling me 40 minutes right now if we were going to continually put out that 1200 watts of power. But you're only going to boil your water and then you're going to turn it off. So in this case, not a problem at all for this power station. We're at 175, 176. And typically for tea, I would probably stop it somewhere around the 185, something like that, and I'd be plenty happy. But we'll go all the way up to what I set it at, which is I think 195. So we're at 193, we're going to 195, just a little bit more to go, and now we're down to quite a bit less power. So while we were pulling a lot to get to that spot, to keep it at that temperature is going to be a little bit easier on the system as well. So now we're at hold at 194. It'll click up to 195 here in a minute, but we can kind of see we're using significantly less energy now. And now we're saying between 1 hour and 11 hours of time left, depending on how many watts we're using, where it's kicking up, kicking down. All right, 195. So it took a little less than 5 minutes to get to 195. No problem whatsoever. And this water was cold. It came out, I think it started at about 60 degrees because it came straight out of the fridge just now. And now you can see it's holding at 27 to just keep it there. So at this point, we're pulling hardly any power whatsoever. Now we're at like 10 days of power once we got it up to boiling. You know, if you're not familiar with power stations, something to just note that when you use something like this, you're using a lot of power for a little bit of time. You're not going to use up your whole battery right away. We'd be able to get several boils out of this without a problem in a day or in a week, whatever. And then you just recharge this with solar or whatnot, and you're good to go for the next day. So it can do something at 1200 watts, no problem. So for us, this would probably be one of the most powerful things we would use at camp. So for me, this was a pretty successful test, the R1500, to be able to use some electric appliances if you were camping.
So as you can see, it performed perfectly well. I had no issues whatsoever with the battery. It seemed to use the amount of energy I would have expected, so I was very impressed with that. And that's why I think this would make a really good RV battery or house battery or something in a small camper, because you can go with more of an electric setup in something like that, and you're gonna have the space for a battery of this size. It does use an XT60 connector for solar or DC, and those ports are on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you're gonna find two expansion ports. So eventually they're gonna have some expansion batteries. They didn't tell me what they're planning for expansion batteries, but you know, you can kind of guess that it would be like at least 1,000 watts per expanded battery. So it could go up to at least 3,000, maybe more. That's pretty cool because it makes this battery a little bit future-proof. And again, being that it's lithium iron phosphate, should last you at least 10 plus years. There's no reason once you bought this that it shouldn't last you that amount of time. And then again, you do have that 5-year warranty if something does go wrong. All right, some other things just to note. You do have to press the buttons every time to turn on the AC or DC charging. It doesn't happen automatically. That's the same with my Blue Eddy, but the EcoFlow, the DC ports just always worked. They do have an app. So there's the AllPowers app. You can use it in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth mode. I've just used it in Bluetooth. I don't really use apps too often on power stations. I just haven't found that I really need them. But it does work. The one issue I would say is if you want the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on, you do have to every single time long press the DC button to get that to turn on. So now it's on. Now I should be able to find my power station. So here we go, there it is. It's found it. I'm connecting, and it gives you some basic information. You can turn your AC/DC on here. You can decide between 50 and 60 Hertz. You can see your power level. It'll tell you if it's charging or not. I did check and I didn't see any firmware updates. A couple other things you can do with the app is switch from standard, eco, or power mode, and then when you want it to shut down, that kind of thing. So again, it's a pretty basic app, but it works. But again, I can see where people would be frustrated if they really felt that that was important. EcoFlow seems to have the best app that I've used between the 3 different companies I've tried. Blue Yeti's okay as well. It just has a lot of extra stuff I don't think you need in it. And I couldn't connect it with my Android device, but this one seems to work okay. So now that you know about all the cool features, let's also talk about what you get when you purchase an R1500 and maybe where they might be lacking versus some other companies in that regard. So you get a really good instruction manual. Things are written really well. I was very impressed by this, so that's great. You get your warranty information here to register for your warranty, which is good. And then you get a power cord. Basically, you're supposed to be able to charge this in under an hour. I didn't test that. I'll tell you why. I'm using a solar powered system because I really want to use the sun. So I make every effort to do that. And so I don't use the AC power. Some people, this might be really important. You can use this for power backup as well. So that would require the cord. And the time there is about 15 milliseconds. So that's pretty quick. I didn't test it for that. I'm not using it with that right now. Maybe in the future I will test it just to see how that works. I read online that when it is used in UPS mode, the fan kind of runs constantly. Also, like the Blue Yeti system, this is very quiet, much quieter than the EcoFlow fans were. You can definitely have a conversation or do a video call or something from work, and that's not a problem. So you get the AC cord, but what you don't get is a DC cord to plug into like a cigarette lighter, and you don't get any kind of solar cord. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Other battery systems might come with those things. So you need to buy them either in addition, or you would need to buy one of their solar panels. When you get the solar panel, they're most likely going to come with that cable. So as far as solar panels go, I'm going to do a full review of both of these solar panels separately from this to try to keep this review a little bit shorter. But again, you can purchase either the SF200, which is the flexible solar panel, or the SP35, or a number of other solar panels. Another great feature about the R1500 is it can do up to 650 watts of solar charging, and you can dual charge AC and solar at the same time. They actually have a 600 watt panel you can buy. They also have a 400 watt panel you can buy and several 200s. These are 2 of the 200 panels here. Again, I'm going to do a deeper dive into those. I just want to let you know though, if you get the flexible solar panel, this one right here, you may need to pick up some additional cables to connect it correctly. I believe it only came with this Anderson plug, and that actually doesn't work with the system because it needs an XT60 cable. That being said, the SP35, which is a 200 watt foldable solar panel, as you can see, I've used quite a bit. It's pretty dirty because I've used it on a few trips. That one comes with the XT60 cable, and it's about maybe 5 feet in length, something like that. Not too bad. But it also comes with another cable, and that is this one right here. This one's great because it's still 5 feet long, but it's adaptable. So you have a couple of different DC type plugs, and they actually have a whole kit of different plugs you can use with this specific cable. I really like that a lot. So the SP35 is a pretty good value in that regard because it's giving you something that can connect to multiple different types of battery systems. But I'm not going to get too deep into the solar panels themselves. That'll be a different video. All right, so let's talk performance. I've used this now for a couple of weeks. I've used it daily. I've charged it nearly daily or every other day as I've charged up different devices. I've done multiple computers. I've done drones. I've done cameras. I've done phones. I've done tablets. And I've done a lot of those things all at the same time because it has so many ports. And the R15 just hasn't blinked. It hasn't had any problems whatsoever charging any of those things. The wireless charging works great. I've used it with headphones and a phone. I've had no problems with that either. Again, everything works as you would expect it to. And then as far as the solar panels go and charging, I've used it with both of these panels as well as my Renogy panel, which is also a 200 watt panel just to kind of test things out. And so basically what I found with that, if you're going to buy this with a solar panel and you want the best performing between the SP35 and the SF200, I found that the SF200 seems to be more efficient and does do a little bit better in the same conditions over the SP35. But if you're going to take it off grid and you're not going to have a spot to mount something like this permanently to a camper or whatnot, that's where, even though this doesn't put out as much power all the time, this might be the better option. This is a 200 watt panel, but it is only 11 pounds. That is super light. In comparison, my Renogy panel, which is also 200 watts, is 17 pounds, and it is quite a bit bigger than this one as well. So I do think that this is actually a pretty good value in that regard. It does charge over 100 watts when the sun's in good conditions, and it actually seems to charge the best both at night and in the morning. It seems to just work better in those conditions for whatever reason. Maybe it heats up a little bit too much during the day, I don't know. So I'm actually interested to see what this will do in the fall. But again, I'll have more of a breakdown on that in the full panel review that I do for these. I think their 400 watt panel looks pretty interesting. Having a little bit bigger panel would be smart. It'll charge a little bit more quickly. So AllPowers also has a lot of cables and connectors for sale on their website. Lots of great accessories there, whether it's a DC cable, whatnot, but also they have the connectors to be able to do parallel connections of multiple solar panels. So you could do two 200s as well or something like that. So if I was just looking for one battery for all my needs, this would fall short for me in one area, and that's that it doesn't have an IP rating for water and dust, and I couldn't put it in the back of my truck. But in all other areas, I was very impressed with the AllPowers R1500. And I'd have no problems recommending it to anybody who wants to get into the power station game. This is a pretty good product. The only things I didn't love on this are the doors. So you push to open and then you kind of have to pull them up. And then because of the doors, it sometimes made it hard to actually plug in the solar connector because I had to come from the top and I couldn't see it. The other side is probably less of a problem because those are expansion batteries and you're not going to be plugging and unplugging those constantly, but I was doing quite a bit with the solar cables. So it'd be interesting if this folded up all the way, or at least when I click it, if it popped open all the way and I didn't have to try to open it with my finger. And then you kind of never know about these plastic mechanisms. Maybe it would be better to just have had that be a magnet. That's really it otherwise. There are a lot of batteries from AllPower, so if this is not the right size for you, take a look and see what else they have. I'll be excited to see what they do with some of those expansion batteries. Since this is the biggest battery I've ever had, I'd be super interested to test out some of the bigger batteries as well and see how they perform for the house as a backup system. I think that'd be kind of interesting as well. I also would say that when you can get these on sale, you're getting really good deals. So definitely look out for those. And then again, you've got the coupon code Ben and Beta for me as well, which will give you an additional amount off of your purchase. So I'd love to know what questions you have about this AllPower system and what I can answer for you. I'd also like to know from other people who have purchased any AllPowers power stations and how they're working out for you. This has been rock solid for me, and again, I would recommend it for pretty much anybody. But if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. That's really helpful as well. Or share this out with anybody who might be in the market for a power station. I appreciate that too. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, live your life in beta, and we'll see you next time.